February 13th, 2024, City Council to order. If you could please rise for a prayer and moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance with Mr. Tankersley. Would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mrs. Sharpshire? Here. Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Levitt?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. And Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes of the last meeting? Seeing none, the minutes will stand as approved, as written and distributed. Reports and communications, Mayor Hardman.
The only thing I have for this evening is to report on our January Mayor's Court revenue. Total revenue for January was $21,032.60, which is our year-to-date amount, because that's the first month. And it's the full report and breakdown is as will be made a part of your minutes for this evening. That's all I have for this evening, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Seeing none, thank you. Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. We have 4 pieces of legislation this evening, along with 2 voice votes. The first ordinance is Ordinance 2024-10, dealing with some parking code amendments. Chief's here to talk about that.
2 parking ordinances that are on up for a vote involve overtime parking and block signs. We worked with the law committee, found some better language, better guidance on how to enforce it, and build some consistency so it is on one page.
Basically clarifying the block sidewalk ordinance such that a complete blockage would be required for a violation to occur.
The existing ordinance simply reads blockage, and it doesn't provide any guidance on how much blockage there is. So we sought some clarification, and we agreed that complete blockage is the spirit of the law and purpose of it.
And the other ordinance change is going from 24 hours, basically 1 day of parking to 7-day time frame before it's a violation.
And that change, as was discussed, is the intent behind that is if you park your car in front of your house and go on vacation, you would be in violation, or even perhaps if you park on Friday, by Monday you would be in violation. It just didn't seem to meet our community's needs on any part of town. I think we sought for clarification.
Thank you, Chief.
Ordinance 2024-18 is an appropriation amendment. Luke's here to talk about both of those aspects.
So we are requesting council approve additional appropriations into the Fund 607 for Convention Center expansion, as well as Fund 703, which is unclaimed funds. We are asking for a total of $99,444.03 for the Convention Center expansion, just to appropriate the remainder of the fund balance in that fund, which is intended to expand the Convention Center as that project is wrapping up. In the 703 unclaimed funds, we are requesting $10,000 in appropriations for that. Over the last 18 months or so, we've been working on cleaning up our outstanding checks, and as a result, we've shifted additional funds over to unclaimed funds. And so we want to make sure that we are prepared to pay if any of the people that have had their checks moved to unclaimed funds do come and see them. We don't have any anticipation, but we want to be prepared.
Luke, why don't you talk about the voice vote too?
Yeah, the
questions for Mr. Scholl? Thank you.
David's here to talk about ordinance 2024-19E, dealing with economic development incentive.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So tonight, I'm here to ask council to approve a $35,000 reimbursable loan up to $25,000 for BWNAT LLC. That's the property of 1119 Reading Road for the purpose of facilitating a commercial restaurant operation. The city has lacked to a degree, again, with a diverse array of additional restaurant options downtown. There's a proven restaurant operator out of Middletown who executed a 5-year lease agreement. They just needed some help facilitating that space into one that would operate as a commercial restaurant. The agreement would stipulate that it would operate for at least 5 years as a commercial restaurant, and if so, the last $10,000 to $25,000, $35,000. Anyone have?
Seeing none, thank you.
Okay. Ordinance 2024-20E deals with a SORTA grant. Last April, council gave us the authority to apply for a grant through SORTA for $950,000. We received that grant. We just need the authority to accept the funds and to sign the agreement. The signing ceremony is on the 20th. Therefore, this is an emergency. For anybody who doesn't know, this is for our US 42 path project, because there's bus routes along that path, is why SORTA was interested in giving us funds for that. Basically from our downtown to Park 42, crossing the road at Park 42 and headed up to Kemper Road is where the path's at. And I think there's, I'm guessing, 3 metro stops in that area, at least 3. So,
Any questions for Mr. Lucas?
and then the last item is a voice vote to appoint David on the local, regional ECID committee. I currently sit on that. I put in the council's packet some information on PACE financing, which businesses have the, property owners have the ability to request basically for energy improvement projects, and it's just a lower interest rate, that type of thing. The regional ECID is the board that reviews those throughout our region. Sharonville's had 2 or 3 in the past. The committee meets once or twice a year. It's really more appropriate for David to sit on that board than me. And that's it.
All right, any questions for Mr. Lucas? Seeing none. My report, this Sunday at Sharonville United Methodist, they're going to have their annual chili cook-off. I'll be judging that again for the 3rd year in a row. So there's some great dishes there. The public is welcome to show up, and for a small donation, you can also taste the chilies and vote yourself for the top 3 chilies. So I hope to see you out there. It's one of their fundraisers that they hold annually, and the time is, I believe, at 5 o'clock. So if you'd like to join me there, I'm happy to see you.
The funds go to the Princeton Closet, so it's not going to
Sure.
the church. So, yeah, so the Princeton Closet will receive your donations for the chilies that you vote for.
Excellent. Thank you. Ms. Buhite, Clerk of Council.
Thanks. First, thank you, President Coulter, for filling in for me last meeting. Appreciate that. And there was a change to the public hearing that was announced at last meeting. It was originally announced for February 27th, but it has been pushed back to March 12th. So there's a public hearing announced for March 12th in council chambers here at 7 o'clock on the zoning code changes made in ordinance 2024-17.
Any questions for Ms. Buhite? Seeing none, Mr. Lippert, Law Director.
Thank you, sir. If you were checking your email, Mr. Lucas already made you aware of this, so this is more for members of the public who are watching out there on the interweb. There's been a court case that I've been tracking for years, actually. State of Ohio v. CSX Transportation. As a council member and as law director, the one question I get more than any others is, what can Sharonville do about those stopped trains? And the answer really is nothing. So, there is a Ohio Revised Code statute on the books that prohibits trains from being stopped for an extended period of time. That was challenged by one of the railroads, CSX, and found to conflict with federal regulations regarding the railroad industry. The Ohio Supreme Court ruled in favor of the railroads and basically said that they didn't have the authority to go against the federal regulations. The Ohio Attorney General took up the torch and asked the Supreme Court of the United States to request to take the case. It's called a petition for a writ of certiorari, and the Supreme Court of the United States sat on the case for a good year and a half. It's a 2022 case, and they just ruled in January that they are not going to hear the case, and that is the end of it. So I know there are other options as far as building infrastructure to get around that stuff. I know Glenn sits on OKI now, and they have that as part of their, I want to say, 2050 plan. I can't remember exactly what year, but from a legal perspective at this point, all options are definitely closed. So that is my report. Thank you.
I don't have any questions on that, but do we have an update on where we're at with the notification system that we're working on with regard to notification for stop train? Because we are doing something, or we're trying to find some solutions. One of those was the budget to work out a program that will provide to motorists the information about blocked train tracks, so that there's attempts or better attempts to be able to get beyond when there is a long stoppage. Where are we at in that process, do you know, Jim?
So we've contracted to get the sensors in place, which will give fire and police the ability, once the sensors are in place for a while, to determine when there's blockages. And then once that's in place, the next goal would be to get some signage up, and hopefully in next year's budget, that can be pursued, if not sooner. But we have contracted to get the sensors in place.
Thank you, sir. BZA meeting tomorrow at 6:30 in these chambers, and then after that, it will be Planning Commission at 7. Same place, right here in the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. No report. And for project oversight, no report also, but a reminder that our next project oversight meeting will be March 26th at 6 p.m. in the administrative conference room. Thank you.
Thank you. Report is on file with Ms. Buhite. Our next meeting is Wednesday, March 6th at 4 p.m. in the conference room. Thank you so much.
Citizens, Ms. Knight.
First of all, I'd like to say happy early Valentine's Day to all our citizens. Tonight I'm honoring the Princeton Symphonic Band and Orchestra high school students who are leaving for Florida to play some of their fantastic music. They're leaving tonight. I mean Hawaii. Why did I say Florida? I'm sorry. Hawaii, that's even better. Aloha. But excuse me for that. They're leaving tonight at 3 a.m. and they'll be returning Monday. One of the places they will be performing is at Pearl Harbor on Thursday. A lot of Sharonville students are in the band, including Paul and Kevin's sons, who are also going. So I hope they have a safe trip. And that's all I have. Thank you.
If it's the same as here, they try to broadcast that on YouTube through Princeton's Music Booster channel, so.
The next meeting of the Law and Public Safety Committee will be on the 20th at 4 p.m. in Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
The rules and Thank you. And discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Unfinished business, ordinance 2024-10, amending Sharonville codified ordinances 351.03 and 351.15. Third reading.
You want me to do that?
That'd be great.
All right. This is the third reading for ordinance 2024-10, amending Sharonville codified ordinances 351.03 and 351.15. And that's the third reading.
Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-10? So moved by Mr. Cook, seconded by Mr. Tankersley. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire, again, sorry, you guys have it. I'm sorry. Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2024-10 has been approved. Second reading for ordinance 2024-16, amending Sharonville codified ordinance 1305.01. Second reading of ordinance 2024-17, amending Sharonville codified ordinance 1133.08. And that is it for unfinished.
Thank you. New business. Ms. Buhey.
You got it. All right, first and only reading for ordinance 2024-18, amending 2024 appropriations for various funds.
Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-18? So moved by Mr. Lovett, seconded by Ms. Knight. Any discussion? And seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2024-18 has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2024-19E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a loan agreement with WB That Projects LLC and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-19E? Thank you, Mr. Cox for the first, Mr. Cook for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2024-19E has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2024-20E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to accept transit infrastructure funds for construction of the US 42 shared use path from the Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-20-E? Ms. Sharpshire, thank you for the first. Mr. Lovett, thank you for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2024-20 has been approved.
All right, we have a voice vote correcting a Scrivener's error in ordinance 2023-78-E. Is there a motion for voice vote correcting the Scrivener's error in ordinance 2023-78E? Ms. Knight, thank you for the first. Mr. Tankersley, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Second voice vote to appoint David McCandless, Economic Development Director, to the Suburban Communities Energy Special Improvement District Board of Directors. Is there a motion for voice vote to appoint Mr. McCandless as Economic Development Director to the Suburban Communities Energy Special Improvement District Board of Directors? So moved by Ms. Knight and seconded by Ms. Sharpshire. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you, that voice vote passes. Last chance for any residents to be heard before council this evening. Seeing none, easy group tonight. Are there other matters to be heard before council?
Mr. Calder,
Mr. Tankersley.
a lot of you guys here probably don't know Skip Rothfuss, but he was a police officer here for 9 years. He passed away over the weekend, and just wanted to say thoughts and prayers to his family during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sharpshire.
So on Friday, I had the pleasure of attending Sharonville Culture Arts Center's performance, Who's Killing the Great Chefs? And I'm proud to report that I'm the sleuth extraordinaire. And I won free popcorn for a year. It was a great show. The actors were amazing. Highly recommend their troupe.
Congratulations on that, well deserved. Any other matters to be heard before council? Ms. Knight.
Speaking about popcorn, the Ripper Stand opens March 9th, 11 o'clock. That's a Saturday. Hope to see you there. I hope Jake and Matthew will be there too.
They'll be there working. Any other matters? All right, seeing none, we do have to go into an executive session per Ohio Revised Code 121.22G2 for the discussion on the purchase of property. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session? Mr. Levitt, thank you for the first. Ms. Sharpshire, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Levitt?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes?
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
All right, we'll go into executive session, and once we adjourn from executive session, we'll come back in here to adjourn our meeting. But I don't believe there's any other. There will be business. There will be, okay. There will be business after this. So stay tuned. and a second to come out of our executive session. Mr. Tankersley, thanks for the first. Ms. Knight, thank you for the second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for late delivery for emergency ordinance 2024-21E? Mr. Cox, thank you for the first. Mr. Tankersley, thank you for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, the late delivery stands.
Okay.
Ms. Buhite.
First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2024-21E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to execute any necessary documents for the purchase of real property located at 11029 Dowland Drive, part of parcels 608-0015-001700 and 608-0015-009800, amending 2024 appropriations for the 401 Capital Fund and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for emergency ordinance 2024-21E? Mr. Tankersley, thank you for the first. Mr. Lovett, thank you for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2024-21E has been approved.
Great, thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn this evening? Mr. Tankersley, thank you for the first. Ms. Sharpshire, thank you for the second. We are adjourned.